Hey guys, this is Therapist Gamer here. Welcome back to the Mental Health and Gaming channel. Today's topic is the second of a three-part series on gaming and depression. The title of today's video is Gaming and Depression, the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and today's topic is the bad. Gaming offers a lot of benefits for those that struggle with depression, and we took a look at those in the first part of this series. Today's video is about the drawbacks. Almost all of the benefits that we explored in part 1 have accompanying drawbacks that can go along with them. One of the benefits that we took a look at last video was the idea of escape. Escape is a huge benefit that comes from gaming, and it offers relief from the depressive symptoms that we're experiencing. The problem with escape is that escape that's offered by gaming is actually just stress avoidance. Avoidance is a really critical and necessary coping skill, but too much avoidance tends to become a problem. Avoidance usually doesn't result in any sort of resolution to stresses. It generally just minimizes the negative impact. In other words, when we're avoiding the stress, we're not feeling the effects of the stress during that time. But the problem is we're sort of delaying the effects of that stress for a later time, when hopefully we can deal with it more effectively. But oftentimes what happens is we wind up never dealing with it. I call stress avoidance the bulldozer of stress. When we're avoiding stress, we're just like a bulldozer. We're pushing the stress in a pile down the road a little ways. And just like a bulldozer, when we push that pile of stress down the road a little ways, that pile of stress tends to accumulate and get bigger. And eventually something has to give. And unfortunately, we only have our limits when it comes to dealing with amounts of stress. And usually the thing that gives is us. Either our mental and emotional state or the consequences of our inaction or actions. And inaction doesn't generally relieve our symptoms. Avoidance often leads to increased stress in other areas. So when we're dealing with the stress of depression, we're going to avoid certain situations that exacerbate our depressive symptoms. For some people that can be things like social situations. For other people that can be things like highly competitive sports. For other people that can be things like school and academic subjects, work. When we're avoiding the stress in those areas, we're not putting time and energy into those areas. Gaming typically takes way less mental and emotional energy than other stresses in our lives. So that's where we're going to put our energy. The other areas of our life are going to begin to suffer as a result of that. School, work, family, hygiene, diet, exercise, all those things are going to get put on the back burner when we're gaming. And again, that's not necessarily a bad thing in short increments and short bursts. But to do that on a consistent level is going to create problems for us. When those areas begin to suffer, we're going to start to feel guilty. We're going to start to feel ashamed. We're going to start to feel anxious. And the problem is guilt, shame, anxiety. That sounds a lot like what? Depression. So essentially what's happening is because we're avoiding the situations that might lead us to more depression. In an effort to avoid those situations, we're actually contributing to our depression. We're creating a cycle and a snowball effect where the things that we're doing to avoid the depression are actually leading us to more depression. Last video, we discussed the idea of gaming curbing less healthy cravings. Gaming also tends to encourage unhealthy cravings as well. For me, one of the first things I do before I sit down for a gaming session, just out of habit, is I stop by the refrigerator and I grab a soda. If you're like me and your gaming sessions are hours long sometimes, well, those hours can lead to 2 Cokes, maybe 3 Cokes. It's very easy for us gamers to slip into those habits and just do those unhealthy things out of habit. Gaming is, for the most part, a pretty sedentary activity. When we're gaming, we're sitting and not moving, and that's not healthy. One of the things that I encourage and recommend depressed gamers do is spend at least some time each day playing a game that encourages some kind of physical activity. Every major console has at least some of these games on them. You want to look for games like Wii Fitness and NBA Baller Beats and the dance games like Dance Dance Revolution. Those types of games are excellent ways to get some physical activity in, to counteract that sedentary lifestyle that a lot of us gamers get into. Finally, the last area in which gaming can be problematic for those struggling with depression is an area that's likely going to be addressed many times on the Mental Health and Gaming channel. We touched on this topic in the very first video on this channel regarding socialization. This topic has to do with the idea that while gaming offers many benefits in general, a lot of these benefits are either A, very short-term in duration and effect, or B, they only have a minimal application to the real world. One of the arguments that I made regarding whether socialization in gaming is actual socialization is that the application of the things that we learn during that socialization is very minimal. We can't take a lot of the things that we learn during socialization in games and apply them to real life. At least not at the same level that we would take face-to-face interactions and face-to-face socializations. I personally am a big believer in the idea that much of our satisfaction in life is determined by our perceived contribution to the world, to society, and to the people around us. When we're gaming, we are given a false sense of influence over our world. This false sense of influence comes from very high levels of control that we have over the game world through completion of goals in the game. We talked about that last time in terms of that goal-directed activity. Gaming is a highly goal-directed activity. And another area that we feel like we're given a sense of influence over our world when we're gaming is through the easy access to highly controllable and social interactions. Particularly in multiplayer games, we are interacting with other people, and it feels like we're contributing. While playing the game, while it feels like we're contributing to the world and to the things around us, it's a false sense of contribution. We're tricking ourselves into believing we're contributing to the world around us, but at the end of the day, or at the end of our gaming session, we've very little to offer other than some altered bits and bytes and some achievements and trophies. This false feeling of contribution is likely to make our depressive symptoms worse rather than relieve them, particularly if we experience it on a long-term basis. Especially if we're already in a depressed state. If we're sitting down to escape that depressed state, to experience some level of control and some measure of goal-directed activity, and to escape some unhealthy cravings that we might be having, if we're doing those things on a regular basis, over and over again, it's going to actually make our depression worse rather than better. A statement that you're probably going to hear me make over and over again on this channel goes a little something like this. Gaming is an awesome way to relieve stress, and it's an excellent coping skill. But gaming should not be our only intentional coping mechanism. Much like any other method for dealing with stress and depression, it should be used in conjunction with other more long-term effective coping skills. Things like exercise, healthy diet, face-to-face socialization, actually finding productive and contributing activities to participate in, things like sports and athletics and music and extracurricular activities and academics, and work. Like any other coping skill, the overuse of gaming as a way to relieve stress and depression is likely to have the opposite effect, and it's likely to make things worse. Balance is the key to stress reduction. And I'll say that again. Balance is the key to stress reduction. Thanks a lot. This has been The Therapist Gamer. Goodbye.